The moral of the story, Houston's offensive line with Trent Brown and the Texans defense will propel them into the playoffs and stop the meals over Stroud madness, please.
You are Locked On Texans, your daily podcast on the Houston Texans. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Battle Red Nation, from H-Town to your town, today's episode and every episode of the Locked On Texans podcast is for you Texan fans all around. We got a fun show today. I know y'all not tripping like that. I know I'm not seeing an overwhelming amount of fans saying Houston should roll with Davis Mills and not put CJ Stroud back into the game. I'm seeing those comments. I'm seeing those discussions. I got to give my take on that. But before that conversation, just the defense keeping the hope alive for Houston. What's the hope? And maybe some prayer. The playoffs, and the defense throughout the year has done an amazing job. Player by player, unit by unit, those guys have been playing phenomenal football. The best defense in the NFL, bar none. A Sachs tells a story of how they got that dub on Thursday. But one topic I'm excited to talk to you guys about, just following the blocks. The best combination for Houston all year was put on display Thursday. Tytus Howard at left guard, Ed Ingram at right guard, Ursery and Trent Brown at the tackle spots, Jake Andrews manning the middle, and those guys played some phenomenal football. So that's on the docket for today's show. I'm your Texas Credential Media member and football analyst, John Hickman. I want to thank you guys for making the Locked On Texans your first listen of the day. Shout out to my everydayers from the Himalayas and the newcomers of the show. But also I want to thank everybody for making the Locked On Podcast Network now the number one sports podcast network. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Download the Prize Pick app today and use code Locked On NFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Now, when I take a look at the offensive line from Thursday's amazing performance, that victory for Houston, 39 pressures and 6 sacks. That's the least amount of pressures and sacks in the 3-game stretch for Houston this year. Why am I highlighting the 3-game stretch? Well, 3 games ago, that's the first time we saw Trent Brown play football for Houston. 37 passing first downs. That's tied for first in the 3-game stretch. 3 pressures on third downs versus the Buffalo Bills. 1 pressure on third down versus the Bills in the first half. All of Houston's successful plays by EPA metrics, Mills saw an average time to throw 3.18 seconds. Trent Brown versus Joey Bosa, 21 matchups, 0 pressures allowed. And also, if I'm just taking a look at how Houston's offensive line directly impacted the game, let's go to the second quarter. Houston does not win that ball game if it was not for the efforts and the performance from everybody on the offensive side of the ball in that second quarter. 1 pressure allowed in the second quarter, 17 points gained in the second quarter. Davis Mills, 10 of 13, 112 yards, 2 touchdowns, 5 first downs, a passer rating of 141.7 in the second quarter. I think this offensive line combination for the Houston Texans is the line that will allow, when CJ Stroud gets back at quarterback, by the way, for those guys, for the quarterbacks in the offense to be able to pass the ball without pressure and run the ball efficiently. If we go back and look, Houston in the first half, like overall, Houston ended that game rushing the ball for 4.2 yards per carry. But in the first half, the Houston Texans offensive line, in terms of being able to run block, gave Woody Marks, gave Nick Chubb some great holes to run behind, some great creases to run behind to get up to the second level. Woody Marks on the day, 16 carries, 74 yards, 4.6 yards per carry. We also got to look at in that first half, he was rushing the ball for over 5 yards per carry. What I liked about that offensive line combination, as I mentioned, it gives Houston, presumably moving forward, it'll give Houston the best guys out there to be able to run block and pass block because of how balanced it is. You insert Tytus Howard over at left guard, you're essentially asking him to do everything. And what we've seen from Tytus Howard, especially when he plays guard, is he's able to do everything. Run block, pass block, right? And that's also one of the biggest takeaways that I picked up on. That was Jack Andrews' probably the best game in a while, in a little minute. Because he has entering him on the right side, Tytus on the left side, right? And then you look at Ed Ingram, it's not like he's losing a big drop off in terms of help on his right because Trent Brown is right there beside him. So, like, these guys did a good job, I think. And again, I'm going to specifically highlight that first half, second quarter, but those guys, I think, did a very good job of getting to the second level in terms of being able to open up run holes for the running backs. Those guys did a very good job of handling whatever twist stunts that was thrown at them by the Buffalo Bills. Again, the pressure numbers, I just gave it to you guys. One pressure in the second quarter, 17 points in the second quarter. And when we look at the totality of the game, this is where the numbers may confuse and not tell the whole story of the game when we get to the second half. If we look specifically at the run, the offensive production, in the third quarter, how much of that should we place on Nick Caley? Where I thought as great of a game he called in the first half, mainly that second quarter, he worked against himself in that third quarter. The play calling did not keep Buffalo's defense honest. They didn't switch things up. When we look at that third quarter specifically, 3 penalties on that first drive, 3 straight run plays on that second drive. That third drive is where we saw Houston go out there and score their field goal. 8 rushing attempts in the third quarter. And like I mentioned, those penalties hurt the Houston Texans on that first drive as well. So that kind of limited them what they'll be able to do. If Houston would have not started to get conservative, I didn't know if I was watching a football game in that second half or if I had just tuned in into the Fox News. I didn't know what it was, but it got extremely conservative. If Houston would have kept their play style and play calling that they had in that first half, where we saw Houston get busy, guys were able to kind of win some of their routes, and then also just looking at that lead could have been extended if Davis Mills would have been able to kind of hit some of their guys in stride. But we'll talk about that. Then it could be a totally different story from it came down to the last play where a lot of us was kind of grasping for air whether that penalty was going to be on Buffalo or Houston. If things would have been going the same, then we don't see Houston's offense stall out. But when I look at how the offensive line for Houston through 4 quarters, but especially in that first half play, they dominated. They gave Houston every type of opportunity to be able to go down there and score points. Houston had drives where they had to lean on their offensive line to convert. Houston had drives where they had to get the ball out quickly. And overall, the offensive line did a good job of limiting pressure. When we talk about this game and we talk about 8 pressures from the offensive line, like, that's the story. 0 sacks is the story. 8 pressures is the story. 17 points in the second half with 1 pressure allowed. That's the story offensively for the Houston Texans. It shouldn't be anything else but that. The offensive line came to play, and when the play calling matched the intensity and physicality of the offensive line, 17 points. And also got to give a lot of credit to how those guys performed in that 2-minute drill where Houston scored a touchdown in 6 plays. Shout out to Davis Mills because I thought he did a very good job on that drive. When we come back, the defense just continues to do everything in their power. The number one defense is the number one defense for a reason. Got to keep hope alive, keep the playoff hopes alive. Can Houston do it? If so, the defense will be leading the way. Before we get an opportunity to talk about just how good the defense has been for the Houston Texans, it's very important to discuss different ways to make your game day experience even more exciting. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. The holiday season is one of the best times for sports, bowl games, big basketball matchups. By the way, the NBA has been popping this year. Playoff pushes like the Houston Texans. It's all happening at once. And while we're all making choices every day, one of the most fun places to make the right call is Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the easiest way to get in on daily fantasy. Just pick more or less on at least 2-player projections, lock in your lineup, and you're in the game. It's simple, fast, and available in 45 states, including California, Georgia, Texas, and Florida. We got no excuse down here in Houston, guys. We can support the Rockets and the Texans over on Prize Picks. You can choose from a huge range of unique stats, fantasy scores, field goals, attempts, free throws made, turnovers, whatever fits your strategy. And listen, the new stack feature lets you choose the same player up to 3 times in one lineup, like more on the QB's passing yards, touchdowns, and rushing yards. This is a great way for our Lamar Jackson fanatics out there. Who we know Lamar in any given moment he'll do it all, right? So in one lineup, like if you want to look at how Lamar Jackson, maybe CJ Stroud, he returns back yards and TDs and scramble yards, you'll be able to pick that on Prize Picks. Download the Prize Pick app today and use code Locked On NFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code Locked On NFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks is good to be right. Getting back to talking Texans, before I dive into the defense, I just want to give you guys a little bit more context on the offensive line, but also just highlight the job Cole Popovich has done this year. He's completely won me over. We got to look at, he revived Ed Ingram, who came into this year with one of the lowest. If you guys are PFF nerds out there, and I think PFF does a good job of telling some of the story, but also just overall, he did a good job of reviving Ed Ingram from last year and before that, before he got just last year, his last year and final year in Minnesota, 5 sacks allowed, 3 quarterback hits, 16 hurries, 24 pressures, 3 penalties. His total in 3 seasons for Minnesota, looking at nearly 22 sacks. This year for Ed Ingram, only 1 sack allowed. He's played some great football. You also got to look at the job that, Cole Popovich did with Laken Tomlinson and just the rotating guard situation, which was a complete mess. So now I think that when we look at how Houston can win games moving forward, they want to be physical, right? They want to punch teams in the mouth. With Tytus Howard at left guard, I think they'll be able to do that. And also the Texans' interior offensive line this year, these numbers are from Next Gen Stats, 5.9 pressure rate allowed, 8th lowest in the NFL, 1 yard before contact per design carries on rushes between the tackles, 9th most. This is a unit that is much better than they were in 2024. And now I think moving forward with the offensive line combination that they have, they'll be able to be a much more balanced unit. Now, defensively, oh my goodness. Josh Allen, when pressured, 2 of 7. 2 of 7. 27 yards. 29 pressures versus the Buffalo Bills. 8 sacks versus the Buffalo Bills. And make sure y'all stick around for Tuesday's show, because I'm definitely going to talk about Will Anderson and where he is right now in the Defensive Player of the Year running, and more so why I don't think people should frown when people say this. In 2025, this season, this year, he's a better player than Michael Parsons. So we'll talk about that on Tuesday. 270 yards per game allowed by Texans defense. In comparison to the Legion of Boom, they are favored by 3 yards. This is a defense that is wreaking havoc. And they've gotten better at some things throughout the year. Some areas they're kind of steady the same. Um, we look at Texan safety Caleb Bullock. This is via Next Gen Stats from Thursday's game. He was targeted twice in coverage, intercepted both passes, also forcing a fumble, adding a 35.7% in win probability across his 3 takeaways. He has now allowed a 38.5% completion percentage this season, lowest in the NFL with a minimum of 15 targets. Derek Stingley was only targeted twice against the Buffalo Bills, allowing 0 catches across 43 coverage snaps. This marks his 4th game of the season, allowing fewer than 10 yards in coverage. Coming up, who does Houston have to play? You got to play Indy next. Got to play KC next, right? Division game, and also looking at KC where they are right now in their season. They're fighting for a playoff spot just like the Houston Texans. They're not the big dog this year. The AFC has a lot of parity in it, and on any given Sunday, it feels like the crazy, chaotic finishes can happen. And I think this is going to make for a very exciting end of year, the last 2 to 3 weeks of the season. What I like most from Thursday's game is if we look at what's been going on in Indy the past couple of weeks with Daniel Jones. See, all of Thursday really did a great job of putting things in perspective for the Texans. By no means will anybody view Daniel Jones in the same breadth of Josh Allen, excuse me. In Daniel Jones's last couple of games, 4 interceptions. He's also turned the ball over in terms of fumbles as well. Thursday just proved to me that Houston could absolutely make Daniel Jones' life hard. Could absolutely do that. When I look at how Houston got after Josh Allen, again, 8 sacks, 29 pressures. The last 3 games for Daniel Jones, 15 sacks taken, 4 interceptions, 6 fumbles. What guys, listen, going into the game, James Cook, who I think still had a good game for Buffalo. He also got a lot of opportunities late in the game because if we look at in between the first 45-yard touchdown run and to close out the first half, I think James Cook averaged under 3 yards per carry. The Texans defense did a very good job of cleaning up on some of their mistakes and how they were allowing James Cook to get busy. But he finished the game with 6.8 yards per carry on 17 carries. For Indy, we got to worry about JT, who should be the MVP of this season so far to this point. But what has made Indy so dangerous this year is Daniel Jones playing as well as he played. That is what made Indy so good this year. And I'm telling y'all, this defense is keeping the playoff hopes alive for Houston simply because they are able to take away whatever a team offensively is doing well. They've done it all year. And I got caught up in the hype, and I got caught up in the moment. Hey, coming into the game against Houston, Josh Allen had 11 touchdowns. So when I talk about the Texans constantly and consistently taking away where teams are doing well, he had 0 against Houston. 2 interceptions. Again, 8 sacks. So when I'm looking at what Daniel Jones has been doing, I have all faith in D'Amico Ryan's Matt Burke, who's done a very good job in calling the defense this year. And if you look at if Houston would have got off the field on 4th and 27, we would have had a near heart attack experience. But defensively, he's calling some great games. No, these guys are not to be played with. And one thing that I wanted to highlight, EJ Speed mentioned it. Jake Andrews also mentioned it as well. You know what they told me a few weeks ago in the locker room? I talked to both of them in back-to-back weeks. And they both said at the time of that conversation, we are not in November yet. So all of the outside noise, we're not worried about it because we're not in November yet. And Houston, in November, a loss to Denver to open up the year, but now they are currently on a 3-game win streak against teams, 2 playoff teams, in the month of November. And how they've been able to do that, a magical fourth quarter comeback that was capped off with a sack fumble return by Sheldon Rankins, a masterful defensive performance against Tennessee for 3.5 quarters. But get the Buffalo Thursday night, a primetime game. Houston had won a lot of primetime games. And also, I want to highlight that this year, before the 3-game win streak, Houston 0-5 in one-score games. 0-5 in one-score games. They get to the win streak, Jacksonville, one-score game. They get off the field with a sack fumble. Tennessee, one-score game. Buffalo, one-score game. And all of this has been fueled by their defense coming to play. Davis Mills was great against Jacksonville in that fourth quarter, scoring 22 unanswered points. But we get to Tennessee, and it was a rough day from Davis Mills. Some misfortune happened, and Davis Mills threw for 75 yards, 1 TD, but some things didn't go their way. They weren't able to run the ball effectively. But you look at 3 sacks. You look at Houston doing a very good job of containing the Tennessee Titans rushing attack. Not a receiver in sight beat them. Then we get to Buffalo. Same thing. Josh Allen, who 26.1 QBR. And what I like about the chances against Indy, similar to what I like about the conversation that I had coming into Buffalo's game. There's not a receiver over in Indy that we should really be scared of. Michael Pittman, yeah, but we got Derek Stingley to not only neutralize that, but Derek Stingley can cancel him out. Or you want to put Derek Stingley on Alec Pierce and put Kamari on Michael Pittman, but the Texans corners can completely eliminate most teams' wide receivers, and that makes it trouble. That's how good this defense is. Now, Davis Mills has been good for Houston. The Mills magic has been on, but CJ Stroud is ready to return back to play football. And some of these comments I've been hearing, stop it. Stop it. Before we stop the Mills over Stroud conversation, the conversation that I absolutely want to start is just getting to the NRG Stadium. Yeah. Getting out to the Toyota to see your Rockets, go see your Cougs, go see the TSU Tigers, go see some of these teams out here in the Houston area that's playing some good football, good basketball, good soccer as well. And with the NFL season being here, NBA season is back. There's no better place than being in the stadium surrounded by fans cheering on your team. Let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle. In between queues, login screens, and prices jumping at checkout, it can become extremely frustrating. That's why I use and I tell all of my friends, check out Game Time. The app gives the advantage back to the fans. Game Time is fast, easy, and backed by Game Time guarantee. You'll get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time at the best price. Plus, all fees are included. So the price you see is the price you pay. It's faster, cheaper, and less stressful than any other way I've bought tickets. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON, NFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. We're back and we're closing out with this. There's a YouTube comment from Red Horseplay. If CJ loses next week, then you got to start asking questions about the QB1. And I've seen countless social media posts. I've received so many calls and text messages from friends or just fans of the Houston Texans. Guys, CJ Stroud is the franchise quarterback, and he's coming back at the perfect time. I can't believe this is a conversation. I think Davis Mills did a great job in filling in for CJ Stroud. That's what he's paid to do. That's what he got that extension for this offseason. He helped Houston keep their playoff hopes alive. That's amazing. The last time a Houston Texans quarterback didn't get sacked in the game, that quarterback had over 300 total yards of offense. That was CJ Stroud versus San Francisco. Yeah. That's what it was. The issue for the entirety of this year, for the most part of the year, I'm not saying entirety, because Houston's starting to get it right, and I just highlight the offensive line combination. But the issue has been you got left guards rotating. You got guys in and out of the lineup. You also have this going on while the offensive coordinator is trying to figure things out, while also trying to establish the run. Okay, that's my daughter. I'm sorry. I just think when people view CJ Stroud, their view of who he is, and for one thing, I think some Texan fans could be a little sensitive. They didn't like CJ Stroud wearing certain hats, saying, he likes California, right? But let's be honest about his trials and tribulations of this season. He's also had to deal with, for all intents and purposes, he had to deal with a rookie left tackle out there. He's had to deal with Cam Robinson is in and then he's not in. He's had to deal with Jared Patterson, Laken Tomlinson, Drew Scruggs, all rotating. He's had to deal with 50-11 offensive line combinations. He's had to deal with an offensive coordinator that is prioritizing, especially in the earlier parts of the season, older players over the guys and younger players that can give this offense some juice. And for some parties still having to do that, the offense altogether, they've elevated Woody Marks, and we're seeing more Marks and Nick Chubb, but Christian Kirk has been out there. Christian Kirk did have a touchdown, and that touchdown helped Houston win the game. So I don't have a lot to say, but everybody on the offensive side of the ball has had to deal with some sort of up and down chaos this year. And again, I go directly towards this. The last time a quarterback did not get sacked against Houston, that quarterback had over 300 total yards of offense. That quarterback led a team that put up 26 points. Anytime this team can run the ball effectively, look at the output and productivity from the quarterback. When they run for over 100 yards, going into Thursday night's game, they were averaging 28 points per game. When the elements of the offense that they worked on all offseason in training camp, when those elements of the offense actually are on display, then go look at the job the quarterback does. And in this league, it's always about talent for talent. You have to put your best guys out there. It was a big reason why I was scared to pick Houston in Thursday game. One team had Josh Allen. The other team had Davis Mills at quarterback. Now, granted, Davis Mills didn't go up against the Texas defense. Davis Mills went up against a Buffalo defense, and that offensive line for Houston played extremely better. But just imagine on some of those throws that you'd want back for Davis Mills. Imagine if that was CJ Stroud out there, who he calls himself a ball placement specialist. Let's stop the madness. CJ Stroud is your quarterback moving forward. Now, whether or not he's going to get the $60+ million in extension when it's time for that conversation to come up, I think that's a great conversation to be had, although I can understand that in this league, your franchise quarterback is going to make just about close to, if not more, may reset the market than what the previous franchise quarterback for any other team has made. So I think we should be preparing for a $60+ million per season contract for CJ Stroud. But Davis Mills has been great out there. Let's cut out the rest of he should be the quarterback to close out the year. Thank you for watching and listening to today's episode. Please be sure to subscribe, like, and comment on YouTube and wherever you listen to your podcast. Also follow me on Twitter at John_Hickman12. Until next time, ladies and gents, Texas fans across the nation, peace.